So what is up guys, Nick here helping you to master your technology, and welcome to the iPhone 6s versus the iPhone 10 full comparison. Now this is an important comparison because the iPhone 6s is the 2-year upgrade to the iPhone 10. So if you bought one in 2015, it's now been about 2 years, you might be doing an upgrade. Also, a lot of people might be considering the 6s because it brought, quite a few great things like 4K video recording to the iPhone, 3D touch. It did bring a nicer build over the iPhone 6, and it has reduced in the price point. So you might just be considering a 6s now, and you might want to, consider going to this instead of getting the premium iPhone 10, depending on who you're speaking to. So let's begin by talking about their key specifications. Okay, so let's begin with the key specifications of the iPhone 6s. So you do get a 4.7 inch display here. That's 750 by 1334 pixels, gives you a PPI of 326 pixels per inch. Now on the rear of this device, you are going to get yourself a 12 megapixel iSight camera with True Tone flash, 2160p video recording that equates to 4K video recording, pretty much better than what you really need on a smartphone, but 4K is pretty much the standard here in 2017, so this is still kind of up to date when it comes to its recording. 2 gigabytes of RAM when it comes to the RAM department. iOS doesn't really need that much RAM to run super smooth. Apple A9, which I think was a big leap in performance over the Apple A8 chip, so it's still pretty quick, even 2017 right now, and a 1715 milliamp hour battery. So that's pretty much what you need to know here about the 6s. So what do you get with the iPhone 10 from a 6s? Well, you're gonna go up from 4.7 inch display all the way up to a 5.8 inch OLED display. So this is an LCD panel. This is not an OLED panel. This also doesn't support P3 color gamut, which the iPhone 10 does, meaning that the colors are more accurate than ever and pretty more accurate than most smartphones. On the rear of this device, you also are going to get two 12 megapixel cameras, not just one that allow for portrait mode or a telephoto. Basically what this means is you get a blur in the background, giving you that nice bokeh. On the front, you do get a portrait mode as well with a 7 megapixel on the front. That's up from the 5 megapixel camera on the front of the iPhone 6s. You also go up from 2 gigabytes of RAM to 3 gigabytes of RAM, and you go up 2 processor generations. Actually, I think it's like 4 because you had the A9X, you had the A10, the A10X, and now you do have the Apple, A11. Now, the phones really never get the X processors, but they should be mentioned anyway because they are slightly better than just the single-digit processors. 2716 milliamp hour battery, so you're up almost 1,000 milliamps on the battery capacity, all in a body that feels not too much larger than your 6s. So that's basically the key specs that matter on both devices. So let's take a look at the body and the build between these two. Let's start with iPhone 6s. So iPhone 6s does give you a nice, 7000 series aluminum shell here. You do get these antenna lines on the top and the bottom. You also do have the Apple logo that's kind of on the outside, but it does have a shiny material, no longer painted on like it was on iPhone 5s. And you do have yourself some pretty thick bezels on the front, but you do get the fingerprint scanner here. Now this device is 7.1 millimeters thick, so it's actually thinner than iPhone 10, which comes in at a whopping 7.7 millimeters in comparison. It's still not thick on the iPhone 10, but it's much thicker than the iPhone 6s, and that camera hump is much more bulging than the one on the iPhone 6s. Now, the weight of the 6s is a comfortable 143 grams or 5.04 ounces. What that equates to is a pretty light smartphone, an iPhone 6s, even lighter than the iPhone 8. So what about the body and the build of the Apple iPhone 10? So, this phone is $1,000, so it had to feel a little more premium. So I think Apple added a little weight for that. Also, the components that go in here and the glass will weigh it down. This comes in at 174 grams, and this thing is 7.7 millimeters like we talked about earlier. Now, you do have stainless steel sides here on the back, glass front and back, and it's IP67 certified. So what that means is that it can get wet. It can get a little dust on it, but it's not gonna, damage the phone or anything like that. But overall, I do think that the iPhone 10 is a nice solid upgrade when it comes to the way it feels in the hand. However, I do appreciate the lightness of the iPhone 6s. So if you want, if you don't want to go to a heavier phone, you might want to look at the iPhone 8 over the iPhone 10. But if you're cool with going to a slightly heavier phone for the better design, you might actually like this update from iPhone 6s to iPhone 10. Now, in terms of the way they feel in the hand, I do think the iPhone 10 feels, very ergonomic because the screen is so large and it's very curvy around the edges. It seems like it's a little wider than iPhone 6s as well, but both of these phones are extremely comfortable to use. Okay, so let's take a second to talk about the display differences between iPhone 6s and iPhone 10. So if you're coming to the iPhone 10 from a 6s, you're going to be very happy with the display update. And I'm not just talking about, how big it is. Of course, it stretches to the bottom, kind of eliminates the bezels here. You do now get a notch though on your smartphone. This topic's getting a little bit old. We've heard it enough already, but it really comes down to your personal feelings about the notch. A lot of people say it gets out of the way. For me, it doesn't. But taking a look at the display quality itself, the iPhone 10 is actually much sharper than iPhone 6s at 458 pixels per inch. So that display is extremely accurate as well, closer to the P3 color gamut. Actually, it is P3 display here for iPhone 10. On iPhone 6s, on its own, if you don't compare it to the iPhone, 10, it's still going to be a very solid display. Retina, it is, 200 or 326 pixels per inch, has great IPS viewing angles. It's an LCD panel, but it doesn't get quite as bright as iPhone 10. Also, I find the touch response to be definitely more accurate for the iPhone 10. So overall, it's just a total win over 6S. If you do update, you're gonna be very happy with this display. Now, if you're just watching this video and you don't really have a plan on getting the iPhone 10, or you just wanna know more about the 6S, if you're coming from a phone that has a worse display than the 6S is gonna make it look, horrible. It's still a great display on its own. It's just not as good as many of the displays on the market today, but it's a very strong display overall. I still think the 10, if you're upgrading from this, is going to be one of the main things you're really going to appreciate about this upgrade. Okay, so discussing software, first thing I want to say right out the bat, it's really, nice to see that you can get iOS 11 on an older iPhone 6s. It's not that old, but this is the great thing about iPhones. You get updates and you get them fast. So it's nice to see that. At its core, iOS 11 is going to operate about the same on both of these phones. You're going to get basically the same features here, but the way you actually experience it on the iPhone 10 is way different than the way you experience it on the iPhone 6s. Now, right now as it stands, I think the iPhone 6s is the more practical choice between these two. If you were using either, the 6s is going to just feel classic iPhone. You're pretty much going to know how to use it. Now, if you come from a 6s to a 10, it's not going to be that hard of a learning curve. If you've been using 6s, you use smartphones and you just have to pull up to go to your applications right here, hold down this to close them out. You can also close them by this red icon up here, and the control center is now up here and your notifications is up here. So I think that actually the way it feels on the iPhone 10 is a little more fluid and a little more premium feeling than on the iPhone 6s, just because it's on this premium phone. It's got a premium OLED display, and iOS just feels nice on this phone over the iPhone 6s, but they're both very fast. So performance between iPhone 6s and iPhone 10, what's the difference here? Well, again, you're going up like 3 to 4 generations in the CPU. If you want to talk about the actual series, it's 2 generations, A10, A11. We're here on A11, you have an A9 on 6s. This is all technical, numbers and stuff like that, but in the real world, you're not really going to see a huge performance difference when it comes to the iPhone 10 when it just comes to day-to-day tasks. Now, what you will notice is that the iPhone 10 just visually looks smoother than the iPhone 6s. It just feels a little bit more smooth overall. Now, actually opening the applications, it's not going to be life-changing on the iPhone 10, but I think you will appreciate the speed update. Now, if you're doing video rendering, like you edit your videos on your phone, you're really going to like the iPhone 10. It'll rip through 4K. And also, if you do a lot of gaming, you're going to like the performance, load times, and how the iPhone 10 can handle graphics over the 6s. It's got its own Apple GPU, which is the first for iPhone. So in terms of performance, yes, you get a big leap here, but phones have gotten so fast that you're not going to really notice this so much that it's going to be like life-changing. What you'll really notice more when you come to an iPhone 10 is its design. You'll notice its OLED display. You'll notice its better camera, stuff like that. So let's discuss the security and unlocking features here, differences. So this is a huge one. That's why I wanted to mention it. On iPhone 6s, you do get second generation Touch ID, which is extremely fast and efficient and pretty secure. Now, Face ID is the new thing on the iPhone 10 where you basically unlock your phone with your face. It's pretty accurate, definitely not as consistent as Touch ID. So if you want something more practical, I think you might want to look at the 8 series. But if you do want to be on some really high tech, security feature, you really probably will enjoy the Face ID. It just feels very modern. However, it can be inconsistent at times, so keep that in mind if you are upgrading to the iPhone 10. Overall, though, they both work pretty well and they're both very secure, and iOS is always update. So you are going to have passcode on here or Touch ID, and on here Face ID or passcode. Okay, so let's discuss the camera differences. So right out the gate, you're going to see extremely different designs on the camera. Single lens here, dual lens, telephoto we talked about early, 12 megapixel, 12 megapixel. Differences in the 4K video recording as well. But to begin talking about these two, I think we need to discuss the settings first. So let's get into the settings here and see the differences. So going in the camera, you can see that if you go in to record video, look at the difference in the options you get on the iPhone 10. So it's a huge update when what you can do with this camera. This one is much more versatile. You can do 24 frames per second at 4K for that cinematic look. You can get a pretty, standard 4K 30 here, as well as 4K 30 here, but you can also do a very super smooth 4K 60 and maybe downsample that to video later. So this is really awesome on the iPhone 10 when it comes to video features, and you're really gonna love this update if you care about video at all. Going in the record slow-mo, you can see that it does 1080 on both of these here versus only 720 on the 240 FPS in the slow-mo. Now, and actually in the software, not too much different here besides the fact you do get the portrait camera, and this gives you studio light, contour light, you get stage light model. You also get the portrait mode on the front camera and the rear camera of iPhone 10, where you don't get that on the iPhone 6s, which basically gives you a pretty standard iPhone camera with nice 4K video recording capabilities and live photos. Now, the quality themselves on both cameras are, I would say, much better on the iPhone 10. They're a little more contrasty, a little more clear, but the iPhone 6s is no slouch. And in this department, you do upgrade quite significantly, especially in the video. It's not going to be like groundbreaking update again. It's still a phone camera. I still don't think it beats DSLRs and stuff like that, but it's a nice update to the camera from iPhone 6s to iPhone 10. So here's a couple of photo examples. I took one on the 6s and I took one here on the iPhone 10. This is my battery for the camera I'm shooting with. And you can see if we zoom in, there's just a little more noise on the iPhone 6s where it's a little more clear, a little more, more balanced on the iPhone 10. So a nice update when it comes to pictures and overall quality. Going over to the next photo I took right here, you're going to see once again just a little more noise on the iPhone 6s. It looks like it's doing some processing to try to make the image look clear, where the iPhone 10 just looks better. So look at that difference in detail right there along the borders of that iPhone 10 picture. You can see even when we get on the text here, just clearer for iPhone 10. Now, is this huge? If you don't zoom in a lot, probably not. And if you're doing video, it is a huge update for iPhone 10. All right, so I have YouTube loaded up on both of these here on my channel, so we can go ahead and talk about the audio differences between both. Now, the iPhone 6s, of course, gives you the headphone jack, which I do appreciate. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of people might not be leaving their 6s just yet, but I don't think that's ever coming back. So if you want to stay with Apple, you might just have to accept that. Now, you can cover this speaker up pretty easily. It's right there, just one speaker. Let's go ahead and play this Note 8 versus iPhone 10.
What's up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and welcome to the Apple iPhone 10 versus the Samsung
You can see,
Galaxy Note 8.
look how easy I covered that volume up.
Test of both
Now let's go ahead and try the sound difference on the iPhone 10.
one and see which one. So, what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and welcome to the Apple iPhone 10.
You can see it's just a little bit louder, but if I do cover the speaker here, it still plays. Cover it there. You got to cover both, and that's probably not going to happen. When is that ever going to happen? I don't think that's ever going to happen. It just sounds clearer for the iPhone 10. So in terms of audio, again, you don't get yourself a headphone jack on iPhone 10, but Bluetooth is 5.0 for iPhone 10, which is a nice update also over the Bluetooth on the 6S. It's a couple generations ahead there. Let's talk about the call quality here between 6S and iPhone 10. Here, I'm just going to share my experiences with both of them. The short answer is the iPhone 10 is the better calling experience from my experience. Now, this phone sounds crisper through the earpiece. It also has a better sound when it comes through speakerphone, which to me is an automatic win for the iPhone 10. Now, the signal strength is also better in my experience on iPhone 10. I've had multiple drop calls on my 6S for some odd reason. You might have this experience, but I'm telling you what I've experienced with 6S. Now, 6S does give me the practicality to put my headphones in and talk on pretty much any 3.5 millimeter headset jack, because it gives you that when you're talking about headphones that have the earpiece for speaking on the phone. But with Bluetooth 5.0, any Bluetooth headset you do get for iPhone 10, it just connects so fast and it works well. So the iPhone 10 to me is the clear winner when it comes to this regard. So talking about the battery life, I don't want to carry on with this one. It's almost 1,000 milliamp hours more on the iPhone 10 over the 6S. So it is a better battery life. This one's really no contest. The iPhone 10 is a phone that's going to get you through the full day like a Plus phone. The iPhone 6S is a phone that's going to get you through half the day, or at least most of the day, but you're going to have to top off at least once throughout your day for most users for the 6S. So easily a win here for the iPhone 10. Pick this up if you're looking for a nice, smaller, compact phone with big battery life. If you wanted to hear a raw number, what I get about 4.5 to 5 hours on screen time with 6S. We're looking at more like 6.5 hours to 8 hours of on-screen time with the iPhone 10. Standby strong on both. Standby is actually a little bit better for some odd reason on the iPhone 6S for me. It drains a little bit less than the iPhone 10. This might be different for you, but this is what I've noticed myself. So I just want to discuss quickly the gaming. I'm not a big gamer, so I'm not going to talk too much about this, but you do get the PowerVR GT 7600 graphics chip on the 6S, and you do get the Apple 3-core chip that is designed by them. So you do get better gaming performance on the iPhone 10. I find the iPhone 10 to get pretty warm for some odd reason. The iPhone 6S also gets warm under stress in gaming itself, but I thought they would get this phone a little bit cooler. That's not the case, but you do get better performance in gaming. Storage differences, you start out at 16 gigs on the 6S, but today, if you buy this in 2017, you only have the option between a 32 gigabyte at $449 and a 128 gigabyte at $549. Cop the 128 gigabyte if you ask me. Now on the iPhone 10, we already know what it is: $1,000 for the 64 gig and $1,149 for the 256 gig. So we're at the end of the video. What's the conclusion here? Here's the conclusion. If you have an iPhone 6S and you're ready for an upgrade, you don't like big smartphones, but you want an upgrade and you want something different, it's a no-brainer. Go to the iPhone 10. You're going to be happy. If you have a 6S, you love the form factor, you like your fingerprint scanner, you don't like what you're seeing with these new gestures, but you still want an upgrade, just get the iPhone 8, the regular small iPhone 8. It's a refined 6S. It does everything that phone does, but does it better. Now, should you buy one or the other? I don't know why you'd be cross-shopping these. They're very different price categories, so I'm looking more at people that are looking to upgrade. But if you are taking a look at all the iPhone lineup and you're like, should I buy a $550 iPhone 6S, or should I just splurge and go get that $1,000 iPhone? Well, that's going to come down to how much do you really want a large display and a small body? How much do you want that better camera? How much do you want that premium design that's a little bit more fragile with its glass? To me, I think if you can buy either one of these, just get the iPhone 10. It's a better phone all around. But if you want a 6S or you have a 6S and you're looking at this phone, you know, if you wait a year, there's probably going to be 3 different iPhones. There might even be an all-screen, smaller SE. We're going to have to see how that goes. But I think if you hold off and hold on to your 6S, you might even be in for a better treat next year with what Apple's going to bring to the table next year. This is kind of a beta device, or a device that is an introduction to what's to come. So that is the end of this video. If you found this video helpful, enjoyable, do me a favor, click the like button for me. And if you're new here, consider subscribing. Also, if you get a chance, go ahead and visit www.nickackermanchannel.com. I will be doing a blog over there, and you can reach out to me there as well. I got my contact information. I will catch you on the next one. Be sure to be well. Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and peace.